What's up, everybody? It's your boy Charles in Israel. Listen, we about to get into The Unsuccessful Thug by Mike Epps. It's an audio book you can get right now on Audible. Pretty good. We're going to go ahead and check it out. Give me the thumbs up button, subscribe to Charles in Israel. Let's go ahead and get into it.
Hollywood is Stephen Decatur High School. When I was younger and bill collectors would call the house, I would mimic a white man's voice. It was an important skill to have. "Why, yes, sir, that check is in the mail," I would say in my crisp white person voice. "Well, ma'am, I'm afraid that woman no longer lives here. How sorry I am you are having trouble collecting from her." I've often been asked, first in school and later in auditions, if I know how to talk without using slang. Of course I do. That's the voice black men use in a job interview or when they're talking to the boss or dealing with the judge. That's the bullshit you have to use when you get pulled over by the cops. When you see those lights, especially when you know you have some guns or drugs in the car, you think, time to talk like a white person. Maybe he'll let me drive away. He comes up to the window, you smile and say, "Good evening, officer." And then you pray. Remembering who you are and what your soul is can be hard in Hollywood. I try to stay true to myself. I once walked off the set of a TV show because they had us shooting at a real slave plantation. In the scene, I had to get into bed with a white girl, but when I got to the set, it just didn't feel right. I was looking out into the woods, and it was like ghosts of former slaves were haunting me. I took a break and called my grandmother to tell her. "You leave, baby," she said. "You don't need that money." And I ran like an escaping slave off that set. I've always hated people who wanted to be popular. Hollywood reminds me of Stephen Decatur High School so much. The kids in high school who were at the popular table were always people that didn't have no real talent. People like that weren't shit to me. That's how Hollywood is to me, too. The people who are just funny enough or talented enough are the ones who are popular. But the best ones are always somewhere else. In the fall of 2016, I wound up in Montreal, Canada, playing Dr. Chris Salgado in the Death Wish remake starring Bruce Willis. Now, there weren't a lot of black doctors living around us back in Indianapolis when I was growing up, but I was able to play a doctor because very early on I learned how to transform myself into someone who could get by in any situation. So I used the skills I honed figuring out how to talk to cops and judges and lawyers to pretend to be a doctor. But now, one thing is different. Now that I'm an adult, I know I can be articulate as myself. I don't have to play a white person. I can talk like a smart doctor version of myself without necessarily pretending to be white. It sounds like a small difference. To me, it's huge. Filming Death Wish in Canada during the 2016 U.S. election was especially refreshing because I got to see America and its politics from the outside. I love America, but being in Canada made me think about how free I am, and also to ask some questions like, is it really free? The answer is no. You gotta pay something for it. And growing up black is still detrimental to a person's safety. Racism is all over the world, but I think you can feel it more in America. Growing up in segregated Indiana, I used to be intimidated by people from bigger cities. But when I was hanging out in Montreal, I realized something else. Being from Indiana made me who I am, and I'm no less than anyone else. In fact, I think about people I used to look up to, and I've realized that now I've seen more of the world than they probably ever will. As a comedian and actor, I've been all over the world. I ran through LA and New York like water. I ran through Detroit too. Where you belong is about heart and individuality, and it has nothing to do with landscapes or where on the map you start. It's not about where you're from. It's all about who you were born to be. I tell kids all the time, if you can't imagine it, it's hard to get there. You have to have a really advanced imagination. If you don't dream it, it won't happen. On that bus from Atlanta to New York, all I did was keep dreaming. My head mashed against the greasy window coming up through the Appalachian Mountains, up the East Coast. And it got to be where the whole world started to seem like a dream to me. Awake or asleep, it was all the same. I was just dreaming. I have to remind myself that a lot of people in the business went into it wanting to be famous. Not me. Because of how I grew up, I never expected to have anything, and I can work with whatever I have. If I get $2, I'll have more fun than somebody with 100. I've never been that type of person who's greedy for fame or money. I got into this for just one reason, because I really enjoyed making people laugh. I enjoyed it so much I realized I couldn't live without it. Still, you have to be strong to make it in Hollywood, because you get rejected all the time. Like when he made Ride Along, Ice Cube traded me in for Kevin Hart, that Webster-sized motherfucker. Then there was the time Katt Williams tried to diss me, and I gave it right back. He is one crazy firecracker motherfucker. He and I were about to do another movie together, and beforehand, I showed up at a show we were going to do together, and he was in front of the theater waiting for me, doing that pacing thing of his. Instead of saying hi, he yelled, "You couldn't drive up in a newer car." Then, "You got my old jokes in that big trunk." "No," I said. "I got a little kid in there who could beat you up just like that seventh grader you tried to take in Gainesville." He just lost a fight to a child, and it was all over YouTube. We've battled a lot over the years, and because we had street people around us, it could have gotten ugly. But while I'm writing this, we're getting ready to start together in a sequel to Meet the Blacks. Shit talking is just part of the game. It's fun. Here's some more. Remember when Dave Chappelle got all that money and went to Africa? Just so everyone knows, you give me $50 million, I promise not to go to Africa. I will go to the mall, yes. I will go to the car dealership. Africa? No. Who else? Ice-T. Ice-T did some mighty bad acting on Law and Order. Every episode, they only give him like 2 lines, and then you don't see Ice-T again until the end. Homicide says 3 kids are missing. We still don't know what happened. And out. I can laugh at myself too, though. You know, I had a network TV show for about 5 minutes. People went from calling out, "Uncle Buck," to, "What the fuck happened to your motherfucking TV show?" I was test driving a new car when I got the news that it got canceled. "What do you think?"
Wow.
the salesman said. "I think I can't afford this car anymore," I said. I still feel out of place in Hollywood. When I go to award shows, I don't know what to do with myself. I usually find a corner and just lean on a wall. I can tell people are scared of me, and that's an uncomfortable feeling. They're either afraid of me or they don't take me seriously. I don't know which is worse. Coming from where I come from, the worst thing is not being respected. The only reason why I want a motherfucker to be scared of me is so you won't disrespect me. That's where all
Right.
my tough shit comes from. I don't want you taking advantage of me. So if I'm mean, that's why. I've been mean in my life because of that. And people misunderstand me for that. They look at it like, damn, he's an asshole. Well, earlier this week I came in the door nice and 3 people took advantage of me. No names, but they know who the fuck I'm talking about. Shit, everybody in the business knows who I'm talking about. I'm talking about basically everyone. So tomorrow, I'm gonna be an asshole. Because I don't want to be taken advantage of again.
That's one thing about living out here in LA. They really do see kindness as weakness, not just in. I think, yeah, I think LA. Period. If you were nice, where I come from, Florida, we're good. We're not saying there's not good people in LA, but I grew up, to treat people good. Here, if you a nice, treat people good type of person, they will take advantage of you. They see you as a lick. Women will, men will, Hollywood, like anybody. They, oh, you a nice guy. Oh, I'm gonna see if I can just work you for something. That's. I think that's just LA in general. But that's interesting what he said about how what he said. I forgot what he said. He said about him being the whole thing with Cat Williams getting beat up by that seventh grader. That was funny. I remember that. And that boy put him in. I think that boy was like a wrestling champ or something, and he put Cat Williams in a headlock. But the boy was kind of coming at Cat Williams crazy, you know. That's one thing, man. When you short, people try you, and Cat Williams is a short man. He's a very short man, and a lot of times I think he was getting in all that trouble because people sometimes try short people. You know what I'm saying? And I think that little boy sized them up and saw that, oh, okay, you know. And a lot of that be jealousy. People be jealous of celebrities. You know, people don't know how to. You know, people feel threatened, even grown men. And I mean, that was a kid that he got into it with, but it be grown men sizing you up. Who we think he is? We think he's somebody over here in our neighborhood with all his money. I should rob his ass. You know what I'm saying? It's just that it's that crabs in the bucket mentality that a lot of us have from our community. But anyway, what do y'all think about this book, man? Unsuccessful Thug by Mike Epps. He's talking about his high school years, and I didn't know that Ice Cube replaced him with Kevin Hart. Ain't that crazy? I thought Mike Epps was Ice Cube's boy. But you know what though? I think the reason why Ice Cube did that because around the time the Ride Along thing came out, the first Ride Along came out, Kevin Hart was huge. I think Like a Man 2 had blown him up. And he had did I think he had did a stand-up tour after that that blew up. Um, I believe that stand-up tour was doing New Year's, something like that, and he blew up. So I think that's when Ice Cube felt like, oh, let me cash in, which I didn't even know Ice Cube produced Ride Along 1 and 2, but I guess he did. You know, he does have his own production company, Cube Visions. So, but that's kind of cool, you know. I guess you really don't have really real friends in Hollywood, huh? Anyway, what do y'all think? Leave your comments, subscribe to Charles and Appreciate it.